guys, Slimber here, and my hair looks absolutely fucked, and this room's still a mess because I haven't really been home enough to clean it. But we're gonna do a video on Learn Liberty, who says that everything you hate about healthcare is actually socialism. Let's get right into this, shall we?
Anyone who's ever called a doctor's office or insurance company knows there is no more convoluted, inefficient system in the United States than healthcare.
Hello, and thank you for calling Cigna. Calls may be monitored or recorded to ensure quality of service.
That's no coincidence. The government has been intervening for more than a century.
People often justify government interventions in healthcare by saying that we have a right to healthcare. We do have rights to healthcare, and our most important healthcare right is the right to make our own health decisions.
For most decisions, we get to shop around, sample, compare prices, find reviews on relatively unimportant things like brands of peanut butter. The markets for those things have as little friction as possible between customers and businesses. But look at the market for the most important decisions we'll ever make. Which doctor to see, which emergency procedure to have. It can be a struggle just to speak to a real person. And if you ever do, they can't even tell you what that visit or procedure will cost. How did what should be a simple exchange of money for services end up looking like this? And what can we do about it?
My name is Michael Cannon. I'm the Director of Health Policy Studies at the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C. The original sin of U.S. health policy was when, in the early 1900s, government decided it would start licensing doctors and other clinicians.
Bruh. So you're telling me the thing that prevents people like Malachi Love Robinson from being able to roam the halls pretending to be a doctor, or starting a fake clinic where he scammed an old lady for a bunch of money, that's the first sin? That's the problem? I mean, look, if you don't know who Malachi Love Robinson is, you could probably Google it, or you could find, I don't know if Internet Today has re-uploaded their videos on that from when they were on Machinima, but I know there's an archive of it. If you look up, Machinima ETC, Malachi Love Robinson, they have a bunch of videos on him. He was an interesting fellow, but basically, listen, without a license, how are you going to verify your doctor has actually had medical training? Do you want somebody without medical training doing surgery on you? I don't think I would. Should we make licenses cheaper? Yeah, I 100% agree, but I don't think we should get rid of licenses. I don't think licenses are the problem.
Telling them you need to get permission from the government in order to practice medicine.
It made becoming a doctor more expensive, which made healthcare more expensive.
Licensing has also reduced the quality of care. One of the ways it did so in the United States was it ended up blocking Jews and women and African Americans from practicing medicine.
Whoa. You skipped over the quality of care thing, unless you're trying to correlate Jews and blacks not being able to get a medical license to quality of care. Listen, I think they can get a medical license now without being discriminated against pretty easily, but I don't think that's really relevant to a video about, why the quality of healthcare in this country is so bad. However, it seems like you just kind of skipped over that because, simple fact is, you can't really compare the quality of healthcare in the 1900s, before healthcare companies existed, to now, like 100 years later, when there's, been a bunch of breakthroughs medically. Which, by the way, has nothing to do with the healthcare companies. That is all taxpayer money, which has caused that fucking breakthroughs. We are paying basically so, medical companies can make a profit. But to get back to the point here, those two don't correlate, and if that's what you're trying to compare, and I'm pretty sure black and Jewish people can get a license now, so what was the point of bringing that up at all?
1913, another bull in a china shop was unleashed on what had been a rapidly improving healthcare system when the federal government instituted the income tax.
They did not know how to tax the health benefits that employers were providing to their workers as income. It created a situation where either you let your employer control a significant chunk of your income, or if you took that money as cash and bought your own health insurance, the government would penalize you with higher taxes.
And if you thought that was bad, just you wait.
Please stay on the line and our next available representative will assist you.
As bombs were dropping throughout Europe during World War II, facing a national scarcity of labor, Congress dropped perhaps the most socialist act in U.S. history. The Stabilization Act of 1942 froze wages to prevent companies from offering higher salaries to attract new workers. What happened? What always happens when new laws are passed? The most cunning companies looked for a loophole. Guess where they found it? Healthcare. To attract workers without offering higher wages, companies added to their lineup of health benefits. It drove employers further into the insurance game and further distorted the market for health insurance.
People end up demanding more insurance, both because the after-tax price is lower and because it seems like it's their employer's money they're spending when it's really actually their own.
Sure enough, by 2020, employment-based insurance covered 54% of the American population.
This isn't really a disagreement or anything. It's actually me agreeing here, obviously, that employment-based health insurance is a problem, and 2020 is the perfect example because a lot of people lost their insurance when they lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their jobs because of the pandemic. A lot of people needed insurance for the pandemic. So, maybe not a good idea. But at the same time, with private insurance in general, a lot of people still couldn't afford private insurance because they didn't have a fucking job anymore. I'm sorry, but unemployment wasn't really that much as people pretend like it was. We needed universal fucking healthcare. That should have been the push. That's the problem, right? If we didn't get universal healthcare then, I'm sorry, but we're never going to get it the way we've been trying if we didn't get it then. There's no way to get it done nicely. There's no way to get it done legislatively. I think you can see where I'm going here. But so I don't get banned from YouTube, I'm just gonna let you figure it out.
Alright, if insurance is heavily tied to employment, which group of people, a group of people that really needs health insurance, gets screwed? Remember, anyone who doesn't get health insurance through their employer gets penalized in taxes. I've got plenty of time to wait, but I'm sure you're busy, so let's send it back to Michael.
So about 50 years after the government put that penalty in place, it looked around and saw there are all sorts of retirees who had no health insurance. And it also noticed that healthcare is so expensive, those retirees can't afford it on their own. The government created these problems, but rather than undo the things that created those problems, government said, you know what, we're going to double down. We are going to create a Medicare program to provide health insurance to seniors who lost it because we tied insurance to employment. We're going to create a Medicaid program to provide healthcare for the poor who can't afford it because we've done so much to make healthcare more expensive.
Americans would soon find out that Medicare often overcovers routine care but stops covering you if you get really sick, while Medicaid patients have found it even more difficult to get appointments with doctors.
The Medicare program basically says to enrollees and doctors, whatever you two want, we will pay for it. Medicare imposes almost no limits on how much doctors and hospitals can charge the Medicare program. The Medicaid program is very similar.
The two programs have continued to grow in scope, cost, and in efficiency. Also growing, their wait times. Between 1965 and 2010, there were some smaller shakeups in the industry. COBRA in 1986 allowed employees who lose their jobs to continue with their health plans for 18 months. In the early 90s, President Bill Clinton put Hillary in charge of promoting the Health Security Act, which would have required virtually all Americans to enroll in a healthcare policy. It died in Congress because this individual mandate was considered too radical. As a fairly young person, proud millennial here, when I think of healthcare, I think Obamacare. It was passed in 2010, and it was a huge deal.
Obamacare tried to cover all of those people that the government threw out of their health insurance by favoring employer-sponsored health insurance. We don't care if someone is healthy. We don't care if they're sick. You have to provide everyone with health insurance.
To be fair, that was the only good thing about Obamacare, was that it prevented people from, fucking over people with pre-existing conditions. However, the mandate, the thing that it hurt you on your taxes, the fact that it pretty much penalized poor people who couldn't afford healthcare and didn't really do much about the prices. I mean, it did, but it needed to be free because still not everybody could afford it. It was still problematic, very, very problematic, and it would have been solved with just universal healthcare, Medicare for all. But they didn't want to do anything like that because, well, they're owned by the healthcare companies. Here's the thing. The healthcare companies found it more profitable to do the mandate.
Regardless of pre-existing conditions, this created a huge problem because in order for insurance companies to do that, they had to dramatically increase premiums for young and healthy people. How did the government decide to solve this problem? Well, it decided to solve this problem by forcing those young and healthy people to buy insurance through something we call an individual mandate.
Yep, that same individual mandate that was considered too radical less than 20 years earlier.
Yeah, how is that mandate socialist, though? That's, like, crony capitalist at its finest. That is crony capitalism at its fucking finest. There's nothing socialist about that. Like, what?
And yep, we've reached the end of the video, and I'm still on hold. It's a good thing I wasn't calling because, say, my appendix burst and I needed to know right away which hospital my insurance would cover. We'd love to hear in the comments about your experiences. Are you actually satisfied with your healthcare? What works for you? Let's throw it back to Michael for a quick summary from the top rope.
When the government looks at these problems that the government itself created, the government says, well, we need to fix those problems. We need to intervene even more. Government intervention creating so many problems in healthcare that the government has to intervene more and more and more to try to solve the problems that it created. But it's still not working.
Well, the video is over and they have still not discussed how any of this is socialist. What part do the workers own the fruits of their labor? See, that's the problem, is 99% of this country is too retarded to actually read into political theory or anything and learn what socialism and communism and capitalism and democracy and authoritarianism and all this actually means. They don't know. They're all buzzwords to these people. If they don't like something, it's communist, it's socialist. They don't like something, it's fascist. They don't know what it fucking means. It's a buzzword to these fucking people. But even universal health, even Medicare for all itself isn't even fucking socialist. It's basically just nicer capitalism. It's better than what we have now, a lot better, but it's not even socialist. But anyways, you can't leave a dislike, so you might as well leave a like. And yeah, Slimber out.